we can't have that. Well, guys, welcome back to the show. I'm Fado. This is the AM tab on MSO. God, I'm
Wow. Did you just call me an alcoholic on live television?
I did not. I said
MFADO. What's that
like
imply?
you being excited about the drinking
song.
on a Tuesday morning. It's just very nice.
Oh, yeah, Sompa.
Yes,
We have some damages too. Please go on.
Guys, welcome back. It's time for Lifestyle Daily, and we said we were discussing citizenship, being a Ghanaian, or if you want to be a Ghanaian, you're a foreigner, you want to be a Ghanaian. We're looking at both technicalities and what it takes and all that. But I was just telling my very good friend Jerome to call my friends at Alliance Française that I'm starting my French lessons this year. And so, if you're also interested in learning French, because at Alliance Française, they have flexible time schedules, they have in-person, online, and hybrid classes, they have experienced and professional teachers. They have French for teenagers and children above the age of 3. So if you're very, very much interested in learning French, especially starting this year, they started like a week ago, register, and it's very simple. Call the following number, 050-128-7814, 050-128-7814, or send them a WhatsApp message on 050-128-7818, or visit their website at afaccra.org. That's Alliance Française, so afaccra.org. Lawyer Sompa is no new face on the AM Club. It's a fine lawyer, fine gentleman, looking very dashing. You see, there's something about lawyers there. You people, is there inside this one for me?
That's
if it's
where
not the
all
inside,
the law is.
yeah. If it's not the inside, this thing is the braces, the suspenders. And we'll put this
I
thing
would
on
say
it.
no more than to say thank you. It's good to be here.
Welcome.
Though.
It's good to have you.
Oh,
Always.
Happy New Year.
Many happy returns.
Not until yesterday I didn't know you're an expert in some sort of financial. What's the appropriate title for that?
Well, I did financial risk management for 12 years in banking before I left. 3 banks.
Wow.
And I still do a bit of finance.
Beautiful.
Lawyer and a financial expert, Charlie.
Look at that.
Yes, you be my friend. You have to be my friend.
We've always been friends, I thought.
Let's have this, please.
It's true. Listen, guys. So Gordon Number had a conversation last week with the GTA and even the Hotel Association. The chairman or
The president of
president
Ghana.
of the And one of the things that I picked up, and also a conversation I followed on radio, was that a lot more people had been giving citizenship, all right? Even my godmother, who's African American, said, "I'm so happy, Amefa. I am citizen now." So I said, okay. I didn't think it would be such a walk in the park. So it just scratched my curiosity that what really goes into it. I know that I'm Ghanaian and I'm a citizen, but how is it that people coming from outside of the country can now, say it's nice to know it has a long-term effect on the country, but let's learn something about citizenship. Happy about it?
Yes, ma'am. Okay. So I guess the basic question would be, who is a citizen of Ghana?
Right. As simple as the question is, it's not as simple an answer, because it's a pure question of law. We're determining who is a national and who is not.
Okay.
Usually after independence, citizenship laws are like one of the basic you enact as a country, because now you're defining who belongs to the state or otherwise. And so as per our current laws, there are about 5 people or 5 types of ways you can say somebody's a citizen of Ghana.
Okay.
Each one of them comes with a little nuance. So the conversation is a little nuanced. But the 5 main ways, some are simpler than the others. So I can probably just run through.
Yes.
And then the first one is by birth. So if you're, and birth, usually there are 2 principles under birth. We have what we call the lex soli, or basically place of birth. And the second one is sanguinis, which is descent. So basically, if you have a descendant who is a Ghanaian, and so by blood, then you become a Ghanaian. Sanguinis or sanguine is by blood, and soli is place. Usually, countries will choose one or the other. So it's either a principle of whether if you're born in Ghana, then you're a Ghanaian, or if you're born by a Ghanaian descent, then you're a Ghanaian. But because we're in the fourth republic, it means that we've had 3 other republican regimes. And so the laws have varied in Ghana, particularly from each constitution to the other. So when you're construing who a Ghanaian is now, you would have to go back to when they were born and look at the constitution at the time they were born and construe what that law said. So if we take by birth, some had preferred descent, some had preferred location, some had combined the two over the course of the evolution of our constitution. So if even you take birth, you have to look at before 1957, between 1957 to 1969, between 1969 to 79, 79 to 93, and after 93. So we can look at those ones, but that's I'm just going through the 5 main. So birth, and even for birth, we know for each of the constitutions it may vary. The second one is what we call foundlings. And foundling is any child less than 7 years who is found in Ghana and we don't know their parents. The child is then presumed to be a Ghanaian. This matter is extremely important to me because I'm very passionate about youth and young people. So if you see all the kids begging in the street, we've been told that they are from Algeria, some say they are not from Ghana, but if a child is less than 7 years and we don't know the parent, the child is presumed to be a Ghanaian. And the state has a responsibility, for example, to children who are begging on the street or do not have parents. The state is the parent. And we have a responsibility to at least basic education. So that's foundling. Any child 7 years or lesser, we don't know their parents and is found in Ghana, is presumed to be a Ghanaian. So that's foundling. The third one is adoption. And that's also pretty straightforward. If you're less than 16 years, you're not a Ghanaian, neither by birth or by blood, and anybody who is a Ghanaian adopts you less than 16 years, and you go through a formal adoption process, then you're deemed a Ghanaian. So that becomes the third one. Now the two, which is what you were talking about for the diasporans, there's registration and there's naturalization. Those are 2 different processes. Registration is less cumbersome, a little more straightforward. And naturalization is where you're deemed to have a permanent place of residence in Ghana, and then you're not a Ghanaian, but you're approved, and the president approves to give you a citizenship in the sense that you're naturalized. So in most of the diasporans, it's actually by registration. So they are registered to be Ghanaians and giving a certificate of registration to say that they take an oath of allegiance and they are called Ghanaians. Some may naturalize to also become Ghanaians. So those are the 2 other, for people who are not either by blood or place are Ghanaians, you either go through the route of registration or naturalization. So broadly, those are the 5 main. You're by birth, you're found less than 7 years in Ghana, 16 adopted, naturalization or by registration.
Okay, let's stay on the registration.
Right.
Is this a legal procedure?
Yes, it is.
It is a legal procedure.
Yes, it is.
Do you do it by yourself or you need a lawyer? And
I think that you may be better placed with some help, but you can. I mean, there is an application process. So basically, you make an application, and the law says with approval by the minister. And the minister, the law puts it under the Ministry of Interior.
Okay.
So basically, what you need is that you need to be
on a wild interior.
The Citizenship Act. The minister in charge is, but I know procedurally, the Foreign Affairs has quite a bit of process with it. But in terms of the law defines the minister in that act to be the Minister of Interior.
Okay.
Right. So usually you apply, and under registration, it's funny, but the law categories says approved countries. So people from approved countries. Okay. Which means that the minister will let us know that even for registration, it may not be anybody from...
Not open to everybody.
It may not be open to everybody from every country. So and you must be a person of good character, That's the first one. Whatever that means, I'm sure the minister will determine. So good character. You must be ordinarily resident in Ghana, which means that in the last 5 years, you must have ordinarily been resident in Ghana for the last 5 years. And then you can speak and understand at least one indigenous language.
Wow.
For registration?
Yes, for registration. So that it comes to, does your godmother...
Yeah, because she tries to, what she's saying, I don't understand what she's saying. Apparently, she's practicing on me. She's trying to learn something. Okay.
You know, so you must show an indication. When it comes to naturalization, however, it's not only an indication. You must have shown that you've assimilated into the Ghanaian culture.
Okay.
So that the standard is a little higher, and the list is the list of requirements is quite a bit. In that case, it's not 5 years, but before that, the minister, though it's 5 years for registration, the minister in special circumstances may waive the years. So you don't need, and I know for purposes of tourism and the year of return, there's a lot of government policy to give people who want to come to Ghana citizenship. So in those circumstances, the state may waive the 5 years having lived here period, and he has the discretion to make that determination. When it comes to naturalization, however...
Sorry, let me interrupt a bit. Yes. They haven't lived here, do you mean they're here, or they can come and go?
Ordinarily resident, which means that for in the most part you've been here, but you
can move.
You can move and back, but you should have been around. Ordinarily, you should have been going and coming for at least 5 years. Okay. But when it comes to naturalization, then permanent residence permit is a requirement. So you need a resident permit. If you must have had a valid resident permit when you are applying for naturalization.
Is this to say that wherever you are, you're no longer a citizen of wherever you are?
It would depend on the laws of that country. There. So, for example, in Ghana, dual citizenship was not allowed when the constitution was first promulgated. And then there was an amendment, and now you can be a dual citizen. So you can hold the citizenship of Ghana and the citizenship of any other country. Just that there are limitations as to what you can do and be, particularly in public office in Ghana.
Okay.
But if you decide to become a citizen of any other country, some countries will not allow for dual citizen. So it may mean that you would have to renounce your Ghanaian citizen.
The problem with that, allegiance matters.
Allegiance, basically. That's what it comes to.
But if the position you're holding, you can account for it, what would allegiance matter?
I mean, this is a very... we all know Asari. This is a very, very debatable subject. And I mean, law students are still debated up till now. The question of whether or not it's sufficient to say that allegiance is the basis for why a dual citizen cannot hold a certain position. Because who says that there are not snitches who are Ghanaians?
Yeah.
So the fact that he's not even a Ghanaian doesn't mean that he has allegiance to Ghana. The conversation of if a war ever happened, where will you be beholding? For example, if you're an ambassador or you are the IGP or you're the minister, has always come up. So as is, the law is that there's a list of things offices you may not be permitted to hold if you're a dual citizen.
Just a quick analogy, but in the case of football, where you have players who have dual citizenship, we allow them to play for the country, and we are quick to even try to pull them to hold a position here, even though they may have other nationalities. Why is it that when it comes to public office, we don't want?
I mean, that's an interesting question. That's a really good one. To the extent that in football, you're holding the national pride, it may as well matter. But what I would say to that is that the laws of Ghana is not against dual citizens. So the fact that you are a citizen of another country, and you have either descent or you were born in Ghana, either one of your parents happen to be a Ghanaian, you are a Ghanaian by law. So if we think that your legs are good, and you're not double-lefted like I am, and we can make you a Ghanaian for the purpose of holding the flag, by all means. Why is that not good enough to be a public officer? I guess because the law says it's not.
Do you think that the conversation of allegiance maybe came up because of security? You know, the war example that you gave. So that if you're military or something, we're not so sure what will you be fighting. You're part of the team, but probably you're fighting against us.
But you can renounce your office. You can, if for instance, I'm partly Ghanaian, partly Ivorian, and I hold an office in Ghana, and I say, you know what, Ghana is at war with Ivory Coast,
yes.
but I would want to fight for Ivory Coast. I leave my office. I go and
Yeah,
Yeah, but at the time you would have known as a
public office holder,
officer,
you
probably have details of the war.
information.
Yes.
You know, so the main consideration in my humble view is security.
Security.
Yes.
Because of the sensitivities with those positions, we can't be sure where your allegiance lies. That's why even for naturalization and registration, you only become a citizen after taking the oath of allegiance.
Okay.
You know, so you actually take an oath.
Are you binded by the
Oath technically means you are, but as to whether or not you live up to it, it's another question. But it's just like the president. The oath is a legal requirement to say that you have taken the oath. And the word oath means
the one they
bind.
take on the 7th of January after the
That's for the president.
For
But
the president.
if you're naturalizing, you take an oath
Okay.
of a similar nature
Okay.
to say that I am swearing allegiance to Ghana.
Okay. Let's go back to somebody a diasporan who has traveled to Ghana and picked a registration and has gone through the process. And the minister thinks that why not? You meet all the requirements. Do they have the same rights, freedom, and everything?
That's a good question.
Benefits.
That's a good question. Actually, that is the reason why citizenship is important. Citizens and nationals and non-nationals have different rights and responsibilities in many things. The easiest one I always tell people is that if you're a foreign national, for example, you can't own land in Ghana more than 50 years. That's the easiest one. But if you're a national, you probably can have a freehold or minimum maybe 99 years. But so that alone is good enough. There are also like the positions we're talking about. You know, there are things reserved for nationals because it's the idea that this is their home, this is their country. So nationality matters, or where you swear allegiance. Basically, you're responsible for development of that space of land.
Now let's go to school. Difference
Right.
between nationality and citizenship.
I was just coming to that.
No, it's okay. I like how you said let's go to school. I mean, when you say citizenship is a function of law,
Okay.
which basically means that you're only a citizen to the extent that the law says you are.
All right.
Some people are stateless in the sense that they have no citizenship, but they may ordinarily have lived here for all their life. So they may say that I probably am a Ghanaian, but by law, you're not recognized by law as a Ghanaian.
Okay.
So nationality, and this happens, for example, in places where there are either conflict or some ethnic tribe have descended in a way that none of them really belongs to Gold Coast. But if you trace the descent, you can't connect them either by blood or place of birth. And so in that sense, the person may say that he may not have any citizenship of any country because the laws will not fit him into any country's laws that makes them a citizen.
Okay.
But if you ask them, Ghana is all they've known, for example. So in that sense, the distinction may be slight.
Different.
Yes.
Okay. These diasporans who've come and are lucky to have been given citizenship, why not permit?
Why not a resident permit?
Resident permit.
I mean, resident
What does it
permit
mean? What is a resident permit?
gives you the opportunity to live in Ghana. It's renewable. It's subject to. It's almost like you have the right to live in Ghana. By citizen has a right. You know, when you get to the airport, there's a queue for citizenship, citizens and non-citizens. So, I mean, it's just like home. Citizenship helps you define what is home. So you can wake up, take your Ghana passport. If you anywhere in the world you're not accepted,
You can still stay in Ghana.
no one can say that you can't come here because
Okay.
this is home.
Okay.
So if you're a citizen, it gives you a right to say, wherever I go, if the world gets as hard as it gets anywhere, I can come back.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
You know, so permit is the permit to live here does not amount to if it expires.
You have to go back.
You
for
have to go
renewal
back
and all.
and then get it renewed. But a citizen just wakes up and say,
And then as a
is
Ghanaian, I shouldn't be renewing my passport.
"Oh,
We just
your
need to
passport
have-
allows you to travel
So it has
and
to-
identify you, but
We have to
you don't
update.
need a passport to live in
In
Ghana."
Can your rights be revoked, please?
No, go ahead.
Please, sir. If you have been, first of all, this citizenship that you have picked a form and you have failed and then you have been, is it conferred? Is it awarded? Is it?
The
it given?
president has to approve. The minister and the president has to approve. So in that sense, I would say it's conferred.
Conferred.
In that sense, when you take naturalization, for example, they say that one of the key requirements is whether or not the person will contribute meaningfully to civil life.
Okay.
So now you're not only you don't give a Ghanaian citizen by naturalization to a person you don't deem is relevant to society.
Right.
So in that sense, even to become a citizen by naturalization because you were not born here or you don't have a descendant who is a Ghanaian, the requirement requires that you need to show us you're either a businessman, you have some meaningful contribution to the Ghanaian way of life before you can.
And so can it be revoked?
You can renounce it.
You can renounce it.
You can renounce it. In registration, for example, where you were married to somebody, and one of the requirements of the marriage, for example, is that the marriage must have been procured in good faith. So you didn't just marry somebody because you wanted to become a citizen. So in circumstances where the marriage is dissolved, you will continue to be a citizen unless you renounce it. So mostly the usage of the word is you renounce. And many Ghanaians actually renounce because they are going to countries which requires them to not have dual citizenship. But in that sense, you can always come back because you are by descent.
Anyways.
So
national.
yes, so you can always come back and then become.
So there's no circumstance where the president and the minister can say that yes, we sort of conferred this on you, but you,
taking it
after following
No,
your
I can see how it can happen. I mean, if good faith, for example, is a basic requirement to become a citizen by registration.
Okay.
And under naturalization too, you must not have gone to prison anywhere. You must not have been sentenced anywhere. So, for example, if you become a citizen by naturalization, and we figured out that the requirement says you shouldn't have been into prison or sentenced for any crime anywhere, and we figured out that you were sentenced or you have been to jail, then it can easily be revoked. So I can see how that is possible.
Can someone with, I don't know how, can someone who has been registered to be Ghanaian be charged for something like treason?
Yes. I mean, once you either breach, you try to usurp the powers of democracy, or you do a treasonable act.
It doesn't matter whether you have.
If even you're not a Ghanaian, you may be, depending on.
Are you asking whether or not they would, if you're not a citizen and you committed something
Not
treasonable.
a citizen. Maybe you are like the foreigners who registered to be citizens, but also are nationalities of other countries.
If you
When you're
committed,
charging the person, is choosing the word to use.
So treason is a type of crime, which is
so
almost
it's not
capital.
really- okay.
So it's like, in sense of crimes, it's a senior prefect.
Okay.
If I'm allowed to say that.
Okay.
You know, so if you do something treasonable, you will be charged with treason.
Where?
Um,
Sorry.
no, it's okay. It's just that, these conversations, as you may know, is very technical, and the nuance matters.
Yeah.
So it would depend on a lot of factors.
Okay.
Where was it committed? Was it committed in an act of going through somewhere? So it devolves strictly to the laws of criminal law.
Personally, an overview, conferring and granting a lot more people citizenship, what does it matter to us as a country?
I think it does because, I mean, it's the people of any country that built it. It's the citizens are popular, be a citizen, not a spectator, which confers the idea that a citizen has a certain role actively in building. So the notion is that, and actually the word citizen evolved from town dwellers. So people who dwell in a town or a city with a view of protecting, because they were all walled, the idea that this is your town, this is your city, and you have an interest in its development. So citizenship basically has a strong connotation with the developmental agenda. You have an interest in the well-being of the place. So the more diasporans coming, if they meet the requirement of good faith and intended in being seeking the development of Ghana, by all means. And I've met people who are Ghanaians, and probably you would say they are Lebanese, or you call them whatever, but they are Ghanaians.
Oh, right.
You know,
right,
they are Ghanaians with Ghanaian passport, and there are a few.
If I
few
found
like that.
a 7-year-old or a child that's less than 7, and I can't find their parents, where's my first port of call?
That's an interesting question. So social welfare, in my view, would appear, because the structures of social structures will appear to be the first point of call. You have options in that state. The presumption that the person is a Ghanaian is only because they are less than 7 years, they are found in Ghana, and we don't know their parents. But you must allow the state institutions to go through the process of really determining who their parents are. So I can see the police getting involved, but I get concerned, and that was I mean, you don't have to just drive out of here, and you see how many less than 7-year-olds at almost every traffic light. You would see how many state agencies and powerful people drive by these people every time. And the question is, where are their parents? They may not have, they may have, but the state has a responsibility to they are presumed citizens.
Right.
And there's a constitution provision for children. We have a right to minimum basic education. Every child has a free compulsory education. So the question is, for that 7-year-old begging by the street, whether they are from Algeria or otherwise, unless you've determined that these are their parents, the presumption lies on the state, and the state has a responsibility to that free compulsory education for that child. You know, and that's an issue I am very particular about.
How will the state take care of a child who doesn't have? Will the state perhaps pick up this child and say we're giving it to this person to take care of, or what will the state do?
So usually the social welfare structures exist for taking care of them and usually transitioning them into adoption.
Okay.
But like many things in Ghana, it needs a lot of honing and a lot of improvement. So the social architectures must exist in a way that a child should not be begging on the street without recourse to the fact that social protection hasn't paid attention to it. Because a child is a child. And a child has the free basic right to minimum education. So that social protection agent, in other places, all somebody has to do is maybe place a call, right? In your home that your child, and you're disciplining, somebody may have to only place a call and to say that, I hear some beating in this house. Maybe a child is being abused. And if you're not careful, you lose your own child. Yeah. You know, so I think that, and if in all the conversations, foundlings have become important because of the evolving social dynamic of where there are a lot of children by the roadside who clearly, by the law, unless we know their parents, are presumed to be citizens. And the state has a responsibility to its citizens who are children. So it brings a responsibility. I mean, if you're not a Ghanaian, then you're not, for example, the state may not be bound to ensure that you have free compulsory education.
Yeah.
But if you're presumed to be a child, you're presumed to be a citizen, then the state has that responsibility.
My final question will be on the backdrop of Chichi. Chichi exclaimed, you know, I like the citizen conversation because all these foreigners, all these musicians and actresses, they say I've taken a test, I've done a DNA test, and I think I'm from Nigeria. Knowing these 5 types of, you know, citizenship, how you can be, which one of them are they trying to be?
So they are lex sanguinis, which is basically by blood.
Okay.
But in the laws, it goes only as far back as one great-grandparent in certain times you were born. So if, for example, you did a DNA and it says you're 27% Nigerian or Ghanaian, it means that somewhere along your line, somebody came from this part.
Yeah.
But you must be able to say that many times it's either one of your parents. In some part, because of the evolution, and as I said, pre-57, 57 to 69,
Right.
69 to 79, 79 to 93, the different laws vary. The farthest some of them has gone is a great-grandparent.
Okay.
So it's either your parents or one step away. If either one of them is a Ghanaian, then you are deemed to be a Ghanaian.
Okay.
But in many cases, it's only a step. So your 50% descendant will mean that one of your parents is a Ghanaian. 20, 25, 27, 30 would mean that it's a second,
Or
is a
third
second,
gen-
is a
okay.
great grandparent who must have come from here.
Okay. Okay.
Oh,
I guess that's it. That's it for
Educative.
me.
It's interesting we've gone to law school this morning.
I tell you.
I mean, it's a heady conversation, but an important one.
Indeed.
And I think that for many of us, it may be straightforward. We know we are Ghanaians because both our parents are born and bred here. We've probably never gone anywhere. These conversations matter in part for diasporans who are becoming Ghanaians, but also for us to reorient ourselves and know that this parcel of land does not belong to anybody but ourselves. And it's all of us that has an interest as town owners or as people who, citizens as town owners, people who own a parcel of this piece of land to seek its well-being. And so I think that this conversation is to remind us that being a citizen has a responsibility. It has its rights, yes, but it has primarily a responsibility to seek the well-being of that space. And if we ended on that note, I think that it would be a
I
conversation.
wish we ended on that note.
Unfortunately,
but
we're not ending on
I
that
will-
note.
I wish, yeah, because I have a final question. You know
Right.
that it's quite some sort of an automation. If a woman got married to somebody outside of the country and the person is not Ghanaian, say an American, then maybe, I don't know the details of it, but then all of a sudden the person is an American. Would that be the same case if an American married a Ghanaian?
It is,
It is.
except for a man. If you're a man, the requirement is to check for the good faith. But a woman who marries a man can register
Look at
as
that.
as a
See how biased that is.
because we have to be sure that you just don't want to be a citizen
For the man.
for the man.
But why? Why can't the woman just want to be a citizen and so she
They're
decides to marry a
people of
Ghanaian?
love.
Really?
We're people of love.
So you see how biased the law can be, how
We're people of love.
unfair it can be.
We are
Yeah,
people,
people
of
of
love. So half of the time we're not abusing the good faith. But most of the
Interesting. So
time,
They are not
we're
marrying you because
saying-
they want to be Ghanaians.
So we are saying entirely that when a woman decides to marry, a woman from a different nationality decides to marry a Ghanaian, she's coming in all for the love.
for the sake of
And-
Maya, we're not
but,
saying
for the,
entirely.
but for the
Ju-
man, there may be ulterior
Just
motives.
for the purpose of the clarity, whatever it is, once you marry somebody who is a Ghanaian, you can't register to become a Ghanaian. The question of good faith,
How do you determine that good faith, anyways? How
As
are
I
they able
said-
to, how are they able to determine the
I
good
mean,
faith?
it says that the minister will take steps in making sure that the marriage was procured in good,
Good
faith.
faith.
as to how he does that.
Maybe there are interviews, questions
I'm sure.
asked and all that.
I'm sure it will go through the process of making sure that you're not here only because.
You have family members or sisters and aunties who got married to somebody in Arbitrary who's a citizen, and by the time you are in front of the consular, the questions they're asking you, you know you're so married, but they don't believe the marriage that you're.
Indeed.
Yeah, so.
Indeed. Let me play the devil's advocate. Lastly,
Always, are you not?
lastly, for me, I mean, what would you advise? I mean, I shouldn't be asking you this question because you're an advocate for, but looking at the economy, looking at how this is more personal, and maybe you can add you can be a little biased with your legal side to it. Would you advise anybody to acquire dual citizenship, be Ghanaian and also be partly something else for whatever reason? Maybe, I don't know. Projecting.
Let me answer the question this way. I do a lot of campus engagement. And one of the first questions I ask on almost every campus I've been is, if a ship was parked at the coast of Ghana,
I'll go.
You won't even let me answer.
I'll go. I know this question already. I've been waiting for that ship. That ship, we've been waiting for the ship.
But the ship is long sailed.
and you see, you didn't even let me finish.
Yes, please.
And this is the response almost across every campus.
We'll go. Canada
About 75% of the youth would raise their hand. Worse off if I told them that the name of the ship is called St. Juan Batista, which is the name of the first slave ship that took people to they will still go.
Sompa, we will go. It's 2023. There's no chains. They're not using chains and whips on us. No.
Even if they did, you will still say let go.
We'll go.
So you see, so I mean that should tell us that the idea of priding in being an owner of a certain place is becoming less relevant because people would rather come from somewhere or would rather go and be second-class citizens or second-class respected people elsewhere than here. Which means that you and I, who are still here, have a duty to transform this narrative. We have a responsibility to make sure that
I said I'm being the devil's advocate.
And I'm being the Jesus in the devil. We have a responsibility to make sure that this narrative is changed so that people now want to come and become citizens of Ghana. And I think it's a matter of time, if you ask me.
Matter of time. We pray so. Anyways, now we can end on that note.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
All the other questions, I'll come to you when it's time for exams.
I will be waiting.
We're fully Ghanaians.
We are.
Yeah.
Thank you. Have a good one today.
All right, you too.
All right, guys. So it's Tuesday. Time now for Travel Tuesday. Miss Drew, your hostess with the mostess, is bringing you Travel Tuesday this day.